Hello and welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate podcast. We're on a roll with our episodes. We're already getting going, and Rod Kuntz is going to lead the call today. I think he's going to talk about the L.O.R.D and the B.A.N.K, and I don't even know how those two connect, but Rod's going to tell us.
Thanks, Jim. L.O.R.D and B.A.N.K, they're acronyms, so don't think I'm going to preach at you today in some spiritual religious message. L.O.R.D is L.O.R.D and B.A.N.K is B.A.N.K. So it's just an easy way to remember what it is we're talking about. Monday night, I introduced this concept that I've been using for years, and I don't even know who to give credit to, Jim. And the rest of you out there listening, maybe you've heard this before, but it is a phenomenal tool that you can use, especially for people like me who are self-proclaimed recovering introverts. And you might recall, Jim, I've tried to rephrase what I say, and I'm no longer an introvert, and I don't think I ever was.
Well, let me say this first and foremost. We probably could use a good sermon right now after this election and some of the things that got passed, but I know this isn't about getting a sermon. But what I like about this topic, Rod, is that it seems like in the last few months, so many people have come to us at the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate to talk about getting into sales or finding a way to be more successful. And oftentimes this is their first opportunity to get in sales, and they don't even know how to approach somebody to make the sale. So I love this this guide that you put together, and I'm looking forward to hearing you explain it.
Well, thanks, Jim. The other thing is, and to set a little background for this, is we've talked before about your net worth being your net work, or vice versa. Your network becomes your net worth. And so building your network of people, of clients, of prospects, of just human capital, knowledge capital that other people have, the connections other people have, that you can actually tap into, and they can tap into you as well. This is a mutual thing. This isn't a selective thing where you're using people. This is discovering what it is that people have, what resources they have, what talents they have. And the only way you can get that is by asking. And I did a parlor trick the other night to illustrate that the person asking the questions is in control. And that's one of the things they teach in law school. You know, trial lawyers never, ever ask a question that they don't already know the answer to. But in this case, you want to find out things you don't know. And this is a safe environment to do it. So the first thing, and if you're in a position to be able to take notes, take notes. Otherwise, just remember, this is so simple, you will be able to recall it or listen to the podcast again, right? So L.O.R.D, L is for location. When you find yourself with a bunch of people, you meet somebody new, the first thing that you can ask them is, well, where are you from? And even if they're from the same town you are, you can pinpoint it and say, well, what part of town are you from? Every town has an east side, west side, other side of the tracks. We all know what that is, or an outlying area. Well, I live out in the country. Well, which direction? Toward the mountains, toward the lake, whatever it happens to be. But location is important because people identify with where they're from, right? Not only where they are, but where they're from.
By the way, Rod, when you talk about this, I think oftentimes people think, well, I don't really interact with anybody, right? And before we get too far into the exercise, because this will all start to come together for you, is you need to act with intent to interact with people, right? So as an example, like I talk about in my book, is when you're in line at the Starbucks or your local coffee shop, whatever it is, instead of being on your phone, look up and look around, and you can use this exercise, right? One thing that my wife and I do, I don't know if it's just because I've been in the alcohol business most of my life, but when we go to a restaurant and they have a bar, we sit at the bar and eat dinner there. It's not that we're going to sit there and get tanked. We're going to sit at the bar so that we can interact with people. Mm-hmm. So I think, as you're thinking about this exercise as a listener, think about how you can operate with intent to be in a place to utilize this exercise and put it to work.
Well, that's a great point, Jim. And you have to be intentional. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be in sales, if you're going to build your network, you have to be intentional about it. And that does mean opening your eyes to where you are. What is your location, right? Is your location at the bar? Or are you going to be hiding in a corner in the dark? So location is important. So again, people identify with location, and it's neutral. There's nothing, you can't be offended about where somebody's from, right? And nobody gets to choose. This is the other thing I talk about a lot, is nobody gets to choose where they're from, where your hometown is, where you're born. You can talk about where you live now, and that's how you can identify yourself, but you're not identified with where you're from. That was an accident. That was where you were born into. You didn't have any control over where you were born, but where you end up, you have control over that. So that can tell you a lot about a person. So you're in this city now, you're in Chicago now. Well, where did you come from? Well, I was born in Iowa. I was born and raised in Iowa or Nebraska. So what brought you to Chicago? See, now we've got a point of contact. Now we've got a real dialogue happening. Now we have a conversation happening. And that's where relationships are built, is in that conversation. So location is just the icebreaker. And if you don't just go up to someone and say, hey, where are you from? Obviously. So this is now we have to start with Dale Carnegie. You have to go backward first and initiate. Start with a compliment. Hey, I love your earrings. I love that scarf you're wearing. You have to warm up somehow, and it has to be a genuine and sincere compliment. And then you start that dialogue with, well, hey, I've seen you before. I've not seen you before. Where are you from? The location part can be worked in, but it starts earlier than that. And I hope everyone understands that first. So location is just a great way to build a bond, learn a little bit more about somebody, and it can tell you an awful lot. If they were born and raised in the country or in a city in the Midwest, and usually you can find contacts. Well, I've got a friend from that place. There's always a connection point. You're always looking for a connection point. And that's the fun thing about L.O.R.D. As you work through it, you always are finding these webs. And what do they say? We're 7 degrees of separation from the person we're talking to.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how fast you can run into somebody, especially when you've got social media as a way to help out with that.
Absolutely. So location's number 1. That's the L for L.O.R.D. O, we're going through this real quick, is occupation. And this is where most people start, right? You go to a convention or something, and what people are going to do, what do they ask you first? Well, what do you do? Well, occupation isn't necessarily where you start. That's not personal. That's what somebody's doing. That's their occupation. They shouldn't identify with an occupation. So occupation is always secondary to me. And putting it underneath the location helps you understand and emphasize that. But an occupation, well, what do you do? How do you make a living? And then the follow-up question, I don't care if it's doctor, lawyer, ditch digger, right? Well, what did you do before that? Did you always want to be a ditch digger? Did you always want to be a doctor? What did you study in, if you are a lawyer, for example? Well, that's a JD. What did you study in your undergraduate studies? What were your interests that led you into the law? We go deeper.
Right. As you're talking, I was just thinking about, my time working with David Meltzer, and one of his famous lines, and if you're not following him on Instagram, he's worth checking out because he's very inspiring. But Dave always talks about being more interested than interesting. In other words, like you're suggesting here, Rod, is, ask people about themselves and what they like and where they work and where they live and all these things. That makes you more interested than trying to be interesting and selfish, as an individual. So it's a great exercise just to practice being humble and being interested in somebody else genuinely.
Well, and the other thing, Jim, is you can learn something from everybody you meet. Every contact you have, that person is a wealth of information and knowledge that you don't have. And so if you approach a conversation with someone as you're digging for gold, right? What is it you can learn from them? It's not about the value you're giving to them. It's what they can give to you. And it's endless. It's an endless supply of wit and humor and life lessons, right? as well as it could be a contact to be your next dentist or doctor, lawyer, accountant. You know, you just don't know where that could lead, or business partner, or somebody you consult with. And it might even be somebody that a friend of yours is going through a crisis and they need help, and that person can offer help to someone else that you know. So you end up being a connector by building your network.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about this week. You know, my kids go to Stillwater school here locally. You and I are now teaching there. And I've had the benefit of enjoying that school now, going on its second year. And I think back about, well, how did I find out about Stillwater? It wasn't my neighbors and it wasn't my friends and family. To be realistic, I was at the dermatologist and the doctor and I were just making small talk, but we had a couple things in common. And he says, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm on the board at Stillwater Christian School. I said, well, I didn't even know there was a Christian school around here. He goes, oh, yeah, we've got one of the best around here. And, you know, we're focused on policies that you and I believe in. You know, I'm not a masker, and I wasn't going to put my kids in masks. And at the time, they'd never imposed the mask mandates on their kids. I thought, well, I better look into this. If I wasn't open to having a conversation or a dialogue with the doctor that I would normally only interact with for 5 minutes, maybe, I would have never found this wonderful place, not only for my kids, but also for you and I to be teaching at.
It is amazing. So you have to put yourself, and again, I'm really preaching to, I guess I'm preaching to everyone here, but I'm especially preaching to the people who are more comfortable being left alone and being quiet, because we're not meant to be quiet. We're meant to be social creatures and to interact with other people. And that's where we get our benefits. That's where we get blessed, right? With those little interactions. So you have to put yourself out there. And this is an easy, creative way to do that. It really takes the sting out of it. Even if you're incredibly shy, it takes all the pressure off of you, because you're just questions about someone else, and they will be glad to tell you all about themselves. They will speak endlessly for hours if you just ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So, occupation. And again, always go deeper. People, I don't care what it is you're doing now, you've always done something before, right? Whether you were doing something to work your way through school, or you delivered papers, or babysat when you were a teenager, people are always have a history. So always go for that history, not just what are they doing now. That's the first part of it. And the next thing is recreation. R is for recreation. Recreation is a fun one because everybody likes to play. Well, what do you do when you're not working? What do you like to do? Where do you go? Whether it's water skiing, downhill skiing, reading books, watching old movies. It's a point of contact again. Well, what was the last book you read? Where do you like to ski? It's endless where you can go with recreation, because that's what people would really rather talk about than work. No matter what function you're at, they would rather talk about where they would rather be. And so recreation is a really great topic to elicit that conversation. And lastly is dream. D is for dream. What is it? Do you see yourself being a lawyer forever? What is it you really want to do? What is it you wanted to be a lawyer for? What other passions do you have? Where are you investing your time? Where would you invest more of your time if you had more of it? What is your dream? Did you want to retire early? Did you want to retire young? Why? Where did you want to go? What do you want to do with that time? What do you want to do with the extra money? What are people's dreams? And going there, now you're getting personal, but now you're getting to the root of the person. Now you're getting to what makes them click. Where do they want to give? Where do they want to give back? How do they want to be remembered? What is it? What legacy is it that they want to leave behind? And I'm telling you, this is where the money is. This is where the gold is. This is where the money is. This is where the treasure is in your treasure chest. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to understand L.O.R.D and how impressive and important it can be in building your network.
Yeah, Rod. And I think in terms of dream, it's also another way of saying, you know, what are your goals? Because oftentimes we can find ourselves aligned with our goals and where people want to be, whether it's the same goal or separately. Maybe it's a goal that you could help somebody else with. So dreams oftentimes to me are also described as goals. And what's cool about that is that's what aligned you and I with the creation of the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate is it was about helping people establish their own values and their goals to help combat some of the helplessness that we saw in society on a national level, not to mention the depression and suicide rates. So I love when you can get to that final part, that dream part, because then it really, like you said, that's the goal. That's where your soul opens up and you can really dig into the meat of somebody and understand them. And that's how wonderful things happen, just like what we're doing with the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate.
Right. And Jim, we've probably been talking about this for 10 minutes now, but you could literally go through L.O.R.D in 3 minutes in a supermarket checkout line.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're doing self-checkout, right?
Well, dude, think about that, by the way. How sad is it that in society we're putting ourselves in places intentionally where we don't have to interact with people? You know, it's like when people talk about moving to Montana, one of the first things I say to them, like, look, be prepared to slow down and have that lengthy conversation with the cashier at checkout, or be patient with the person in front of you having that lengthy conversation because they know each other from, 4-H club or something like that. How sad that that's where society's going with these automated tellers and automated, checkout stands and all that other crap.
I agree 100%. And you have to put yourself in the right position. If you're looking for opportunity, you have to create some opportunity. You have to move some of the pieces on the board to get the action happening. So L.O.R.D is a great way to do it, but you still have to put yourself in front of people. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
And I just want to challenge people to operate with a little bit more intent to interact with other people, because, that's what, like you said, that's what we're designed to do, is interact, talk, build rapport, build relationships, love one another, be friends, help one another. And there's no way you're going to do that at a self-checkout stand. By the way, I always go to the cashier and I'll wait in a line if I have to, just to have that interaction and hopefully secure that job. Although I know that's not securing their jobs the way these places operate, but I want to challenge people to operate with intent to meet one another and reach outside of their comfort zone.
Right. Well, the other thing is, if you're an entrepreneur and you're building your network, the point of all of this is not just to meet new people. The point of it is to make that connection and exchange information, right? If that person is a realtor or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, hopefully they have a business card. Get a business card, put their cell number in the phone, say, hey, look, I've got somebody who's looking for whatever it is. Can I refer them to you? What's your contact information? So if you're mining this, if you're using this as a process, as a business tool, then you need to be intentional and make sure you get the follow-up. Exchange information so that you can follow up again in the future, or refer other people to that person, or they can refer people to you. Again, but it's about making that connection first, but you have to do some follow-up. You have to get something at the end. So don't be afraid to ask. Do you mind if I get your information? Do you have a business card? It's that simple.
Yep, for sure. All right. How do we get to the bank from L.O.R.D?
Man, I'll tell you, I don't even know if we want to go into bank. I'll go real quick, because part of what you want to do with L.O.R.D is you're mining. And so you've got to put that money in the bank, right? But it's not money, it's resources. It's human capital. It's people's character. It's people's lives that are here, and what they represent, or how they approach life, the values that they find important. And you will find this as you go through, and this takes some skill and some practice, but you'll find that some people are motivated by business, right? They have a real business value, business sense. That's B. Some people are action motivated. They want to go straight for the kill, right? They're not messing around. They're creative. They're risk takers. They want to get out there and do stuff, right? And I'm not just talking about recreation here. I'm talking about what they're doing with their lives. Action is what motivates them. And those are the kind of people that you might want on a sales force, for example. Yep. The business-minded people might be the people that would be a great business partner, or an accountant, for example, if you're looking for a bookkeeper. Nurture. Okay, nurturer, that's for the N. B.A.N. is nurture. Those are the people who care about other people. They're always interested in helping and serving. And those are the kind of people you want in human resources. Those are the kind of people you might want If you're looking for a cashier, someone in customer service, the nurturing qualities. And K is for knowledge. The people who are motivated by knowledge are usually always looking at expertise things. They want things to be cut and dry and in order. They might be your lawyers. They might be the IT people. They might be the people who you need to run the back end of something that are data keepers, analytics, that sort of thing. But there's talent in people. So when you're meeting people, you're trying to find where those talent layers are, what their triggers are, their value triggers, and how that might be incorporated into your operation, your organization. If you're looking to hire, if you're looking to expand, if you're looking for investors, all of these things matter. So finding that resource and putting it in the bank, you have to kind of categorize it and be intentional again. Just be thoughtful about it. And that's bank in a nutshell. And we could do a whole class on that.
Yeah,
that's a sermon for another day, Jim.
Yeah, that's supposed to be fun, quick podcast blur. But it's interesting. There's a lot of acronyms out there, metaphors and little cliches as it relates to business. A lot of things that we've heard over the years, but really it comes down to the action step, right? Your willingness to generate the action from what you hear. And that's why oftentimes you'll hear shows like this or read books that are regurgitating something that's been around for 50, 100 years or whatever that looks like, because they work. It's generating the action is the hard part. And most people will listen to this and they won't go do it. And that's where the missing component happens. So I think if nothing else, this is an encouragement or a reminder of what we could be doing to enhance and increase our sales opportunities, our productivity, our ability to meet people and grow our network. So Rod, 2 great exercises. I know we kind of blasted through them. If people want to hear more or go more in depth, then they should just become members of the Syndicate and get all the value there. And yeah, that's a little bit of a shameless plug, but that's what we do. And that's how we're helping people.
Absolutely. And Jim, I will say this too, to wrap this up. This isn't just about business and what you can get out of it, how you can mine that. This is about being a more productive member of society. Society is about people and interacting with people. And you know what? Everyone wants us to be a kinder, gentler nation. Well, here you go. Start interacting with people. Get to know them. Get to know what their thoughts and dreams are, what their fears are, what's important to them. That's how we can become better people. That's how we can better our society. And I think we can all benefit from that.
Yep. Well done, Rod. Looking forward to pushing out another episode of the Young Entrepreneurs Syndicate podcast. Tune in next week. We'll have another episode, see what Rod and I come up with then. So have a great week.
Thanks, Jim.